So, Cuespeak. So as you probably know, it's an app for people with aphasia and apraxia of speech, because it's got lots of nice videos in it showing how the words are articulated. The first thing I want to do is to take you through the app structure, because it can be a bit confusing, because it's a very large and complex app. And so I thought I'd talk to you about the structure of the app. So the screen that you're seeing here is a typical kind of exercise screen, but I want to show you how that fits in with the rest of the app. So if you've got the exercises are drawn from a session. So this second screen behind with the green cards is a session, and each of those green cards represents an exercise, like the one in the front. And you can tap any of those green cards to run that particular exercise. But equally, you can run the whole of that session by touching the play button on the home screen, and we'll have a look at that in a second. So we've got exercises are drawn from sessions, and sessions are drawn from a list of sessions, which is called My Sessions. And these sessions can be for anything you want. So you can create sessions for different kind of clinical tasks, or you can create sessions for different people. If you're a volunteer working with more than one person, for example, you could set up a session for each person, and then you can switch between them on your device. The sessions in My Sessions are in turn drawn from a session library. So that's right at the back of the room kind of thing. And we'll have a look at the session library in a bit, but suffice to say that basically there's a blank session, which is the top one there, create your own session, and there's a whole lot of other sessions which are ready-made sessions, kind of ready to go off the shelf, and I'll show you how to navigate through those in a bit. In addition to these four main bits, so we've got the exercise, the session menu, and the session library, which is confusing enough. We've also got a place where you can hide exercises that you don't want at the moment. And so you can, I'll show you actually when we go live on the app, but in the top right-hand corner of that screen with the green cards, there's two-way arrows. I haven't got a pointer on here, unfortunately, to point to that. But that would actually take you to the hidden exercises. And I'll show you in a bit how to hide exercises and how to retrieve them. You can do the same with sessions. So if you've got a session that you want to get rid of, you can put it in a back room here called hidden sessions, rather than just delete it. So you could delete it. I'll show you how to do that too, but you can hide them in the back room like that. And that means that you can retrieve them again later. So that, in all its magnificent complexity, is what the structure of Cuespeak looks like. So how do we find everything? So to run the actual exercise, there are two ways to do it. You can either tap the play button on the home screen, so this one on the right here being the home screen. That will run the whole session. It won't just run that exercise, it'll run the whole session in the sequence that it's placed in. You can alternatively, if you to actually get straight to the whole session, you can tap this one, view the session, and that will take you to this screen where you can select the individual exercises. So you can either run the whole program from there, or you can go into here and run individual exercises. So it's up to you. So that's the whole structure. I was going to say that. Oh yeah, so sorry, that's not, we haven't finished with the whole structure yet. To find this screen, you've just seen that, tap view, view session. To find the My Sessions, you tap this button in the bottom right-hand corner of the home screen. To find a session library, you go from the previous one we looked at, My Sessions, and there are two ways you can get to the session library. You can either tap this one, create new session or user, or it might say browse library, depending on which version you've got, or you can tap this plus button in the top right-hand corner of the My Sessions screen, and that will take you to the session library. So at this point, let's go into the app itself. So here we go. So Can you see my home screen there?
Yep.
Can you see? Okay, yeah, great. So the remaining things to see on the home screen, actually, I might just make my cursor a bit bigger. That'd be quite handy. One sec. That might be a bit more visible. Okay, so we've looked at this view session. So that's where you find the currently selected session. My sessions here. This is where you've got all your sessions. There's just 2 set up here, but you can set up as many as you want. There's no limit. And if you go into here, you get the session library. So we will look at a bit more detail at all of these in a minute. The other things on the home screen are the main menu button. And this is the menu that controls all the global features of the app. So if you go into app settings here, this has got all sorts of things that you can alter. So this is where you set up whether it's a home user using the iPad or a clinician. This is where you can exclude UK content if you need to do that, but you probably won't want to do that. This is where you can switch to offline mode. And what that does is it downloads all the pictures onto your iPad. That can be quite handy if you've got a bit of a slow internet connection, because then it doesn't have to download them every time. You will still need an internet connection if you want to see the videos, because they're just too big to store on your device. By the way, do stop me at any time if you've got any questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So please do stop if there's anything that's not clear. Speech controls. Here you can control the speed of the speech. And we've got 2 types of speech in Cuespeak. We've got the synthetic speech, which is used for the kind of the less important stuff like feedback, and real audio, which is used generally for the questions, which has to be super clear. And you can change the speed of either of those. In additional assistance, we've just got a couple of features, which we may not get time to look at the moment. This is actually about the behavior of the spelling task, or any task where you have to move tiles about. If the person you're working with finds it difficult to drag tiles into position, you can set that to so that you have to tap them instead of drag them. So that's one option. Notifications is where you can set up reminders if somebody finds it difficult to remember to do their exercises, so they'd get a little alert on their iPad, an alarm. This controls the uppercase or lowercase for the spelling tasks, 2 types of spelling task. The rest of it's not too interesting, really. If ever you need to know what version of Cuespeak you're on, you'll find it here, version at the bottom. So that's all under app settings. This bit, which again we get to from the main menu here, this is anything to do with remote management. Remote management, basically, that means sharing your exercises with the client or the clinician over the internet. So you can send your sessions and results backwards and forwards using that. And what's the reason you might want to know about this button is because this enables you to enter your email address just once, and that means that you'll never have to enter it again when sending information. Actually, if you're using a home device, you'll have 2 email address slots there. You'll have one for your own email and one for your clinician's email. But if you're a clinician, then you'll only get the one email because you'll just be putting your own in, because you'll be a different email address for every client you were working with. So update content. So every 7 days, the app will update its own content automatically, provided you're connected to the internet. So this means that if there's news items come into the app, which we do occasionally, we have more fairly frequently actually, have questions about current events, this will make sure that you've got those up to date. You can actually update your content more frequently than that if you want to, just by coming in here. You can do it anytime. Just click on that and it will update your content. But you don't have to worry about that, because you'll be a maximum of a week behind if you don't do that. Contact us is fairly obvious what you do: write a review and register to be on the email address. So that is the main menu. So these menus, this menu here doesn't affect individual exercises. It affects the way the whole app performs. So we've looked at these 3 buttons and this one. The remaining one here is a library of tutorial videos about getting to know Cuespeak. So there's a whole lot of things there. So a lot of what we cover here, sorry, that's a bit slow to load. Here we go. A lot of what we will cover today is actually covered here. All sorts of stuff in here. Remote management, there's videos on that, and troubleshooting videos. So it's worth going to visit that if you've got any queries. If you've got any queries that you can't answer and you're stuck for something, just drop us an email, and you can do that through contact us here. If you just click on that, it will just automatically generate an email. Okay, so those are the 5 buttons on the home screen: menu, video tutorials, view your session, that's the current session, run the current session, and view all your different sessions there. I'm hoping that's kind of fairly clear so far. Any questions at this point?
No.
No, we're all good. Okay. So what we'll do now is we'll look at creating a new session and then creating new exercises within it. So let's just pretend that you're using Cuespeak for the very first time, okay? And you want to set up a session for yourself or for a client. So it may be that when you first download Cuespeak, in fact, you'll just have an introduction session in here, which is just an overview of all the modules. You'll probably want to get rid of that, and I'll show you how to. Actually, I'll see if it's in here at the moment. It might still be. I know it's not in there at the moment, but yeah, you will initially you'll find that there's an introduction session there, and you might want to delete that because you don't particularly want it hanging around once you've seen it. And the way you delete a session is slide a card to the left like that, and you've got 2 options. You can either delete it completely by clicking that, or you can hide it, and that goes into the bit I told you about, hidden sessions. So we'll hide Paul for the moment, and so he's now gone, leaving only Mary. If you want to retrieve Paul, you just need to go into the hidden sessions bit here, bit of an obscure button, this one, and that will show you Paul and all the other hidden sessions. Okay, and you get back to the main session here, so you can just flip between those 2 backwards and forwards. So we've got 1 session here for Mary. Let's imagine now that you're setting up a new client. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to create a new session or user. So it's basically a session would be for that particular user. You can create as many sessions as you want, as I say. So to create a new session, you can either click here on this big thing or here if it's out of view, because it might be out of view at the bottom of the screen. So we'll click there, and this takes you into the session library. Now, one useful thing in the session library, which is actually a bit hidden, if ever you flip that switch there, you've got a way of actually filtering these exercises, these sessions, according to the needs of, according to what they kind of target. So let's say, for example, that you're working with somebody who has really severe difficulty with speaking. What you might want to do is just, if you flip this slider along.
I find speaking extremely difficult or impossible.
Okay, so that's the first setting there, is for people who find speaking really difficult. You can move it on there.
I find speaking fairly difficult. I find speaking not too bad.
Okay, so we'll put it on.
I find speaking extremely difficult or impossible.
Okay, and let's say that the person's understanding is not too bad. So we'll say,
I find understanding speech not too bad.
Let's say the person has moderately difficulties with reading.
I find reading fairly difficult.
And
I find writing fairly difficult.
Let's say very difficult.
I find writing extremely difficult or impossible.
Okay, so these are the 4 kind of main parameters that you'd be interested in with somebody's language. So what's their talking like, what's their understanding like, what's their reading like, and what's their writing like. Now, once you've set up that, what this will have done is it will have filtered down the sessions here to the ones that are likely to be suitable for that particular person. So we've always got the option to create your own session from scratch, and that's just a blank session. That's for the adventurous ones who want to make their own session, which I'll show you how to do. but you might also just want to say, well, okay, we want something for talking, so we'll have that session there, and maybe we'll have one for we'll go back in here. Create a new session here. We might want to create a session on reading, say. So go for reading, which is moderate difficulties with reading. So now we've got one session on speech and one session on reading. So only one of these will run at the same time. And this is where it's actually really good if you want to make a mixture of exercises. The best way to do it is to create your own session. So if well, actually, I'll just show you one of these just so that you get a feel for what they look like. So the speech session here, you can actually get to see it here as well. The other way to get to see it is, okay, right, because it's now the selected session, this is the one that will run when you touch the play button on the home screen. So if we go back to the home screen, and there, you'll find that speech 1 is now selected there. Whereas if we go back in here and select reading, that's now the one that will run when you press the play button. And it's also the one that you'll see when you look at view session. You can also view the session by touching the green cards here. So if you want to see what's in it before you select it, you can view the session there. This button here, this target button here, this is the button that always represents sessions. So wherever you see that, that's going to take you to sessions. So there it is there. And if you go into here, you can see you can get back to sessions by tapping this one here. So we've got a session for speaking and a session for reading. But let's also look at creating a new session, because you may well want to do this, because then you can really pick and choose exactly what you want. But of course, to do this, you really need to understand about all the configuration parameters. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the rest of this session, really, largely, is how to create and edit exercises. So let's create a new session, and I will create a blank one. So we do add session. So this is now ignoring all those parameters there. We're just creating a blank session, okay? And you can see if I click on here, the session has got no exercises in it at all. So we can add a new exercise by tapping this bit here. You can do the same when you've got an existing session, by the way. So if we look back at the other sessions, such as the reading one, you've still got the option to add a new exercise there as well. But for the moment, we're going to be concentrating on creating a blank, creating a new session from scratch. So we click on add new exercise. And when you click on that, what you get is the exercise creation and editing screen. And this screen is probably the most important screen in Cuespeak, in that it allows you to create any type of exercise and edit it in any way that you want. So this is where all the real business goes on. And it looks a bit overwhelming, but I hope to kind of demystify it a bit for you. So actually, yeah, to help with demystifying that, every one of these parameters or these fields here has got a little help button that explains what it does. So you can tap on any of those and it will explain what it does. But we'll go through most of them now, but maybe not all of them. So at the top, you've got exercise type. So there are 13, I think it's 13 now, different types of exercise in Cuespeak at the moment. So we've got QA, which is the main word finding exercise with multiple choice. We've got another one which is similar, but works on a particular type of competition in aphasia, which some people with word finding have difficulties with. So these two are kind of parallel, but slightly different in ways that we may not get to talk about today. Sound spell is a spelling exercise where you spell with sounds. Letter spell is a spelling exercise which is more conventional, where you spell with letters. Syllable sorter, you spell with syllables. You order polysyllabic words into their you put those syllables in the right order to make up a polysyllabic word. How many letters is just looking at a picture and then deciding how many letters that word's got, and that's quite useful if people can't write the whole word, but they have some kind of sense of what the word is. Rhyme judgment works on just the sounds of words internally, and quite an interesting exercise. So you can judge basically whether pictures rhyme with each other. Asking and offering is a very practical one, where you can practice asking for things, or yeah, offering somebody a cup of tea or asking for a pint of beer in a pub. So it's a kind of a scenario-based exercise. Senfill is all about verbs in sentences. Sentence sorter is all about sentences, both saying them and ordering them. So you can actually use this as a sentence anagram task, or you can also use it to practice saying sentences. And we'll probably have a look at that one because it's quite an important one, I think. We won't get to look at all of these today, but we'll get through as many as we can. The matching module basically just gets you to match a picture to a written word or a spoken word, and that you'll be probably very familiar with that kind of exercise. There's most of the apps do that kind of thing. Word Finder is a very interesting new module, which we will definitely have a brief look at, because it enables you to work on names, names of families and family and friends, and place names. So you can basically pick anything out of the library, and you can work on it with videos and with a spelling task. And the final one is talking points, which is basically about having conversations. It's a load of conversation starters. We'll probably have a look at those two, because those two are new, and it may be that even people who are familiar with Cuespeak haven't yet found Word Finder or talking points. So what we'll do is we'll probably look at we'll aim to look at 4 modules. I think we'll look at QA because it's the major word finding one. It's got a load of content. It's got over 2,000 questions in it. We'll look at sentence sorter, and we'll look at Word Finder and talking points. Hopefully we'll have time for all of those. Okay, so let's say we're going to create a QA exercise. So QA is the main word finding exercise. We'll just have a quick look at what it is for anybody that's not familiar with it, but I'm sure that if you have used Cuespeak before, you'll recognize QA.
Questions and answers.
So this is the exercise start screen that always appears when an exercise presents itself, just to prepare you so you know what you're going to get. If you don't like the look of the exercise, you can skip it there. You can skip on to the next one. So, and there's a tutorial video there to explain how it works. So you can always look at that. Okay, here's the exercise.
What is this a bowl of?
Okay, so you've got a question. What is this a bowl of? Represented by a picture, and a question which is presented in written form and spoken form. And underneath it, you've got a multiple choice task, which basically allows you to answer the question effectively without having to answer it verbally. So if somebody can't actually say the answer, they can nevertheless respond by demonstrating that they know what the answer is. Okay, if you happen to tap on the wrong picture in the multiple choice, you'll get feedback.
Not sweets, not vegetables.
This is a bowl of fruit.
So by default, what happens when you click on the correct picture is that you get a cue, and that cue is called a closure cue, and it's designed to help you to say the word. It may or may not help. Some people it helps and some people it doesn't. If it helps, you might want to leave it set up like that. If it just doesn't help and it's just driving everybody crazy because it doesn't help to get the word out, then you can stop it doing that, and I'll show you how. We go back into the exercise settings here. So at any point when you're working on an exercise, you can flip out back to the settings by going here and adjust it. So you can adjust it on the fly. So in order to stop that cue happening, that spoken cue, you need to tap on speech heard on correct selection. Hang on just a sec. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. Don't do it if it's too risky. Right, that's Suzanne. She's saying that she thinks she's well enough to go and pick Thomas up from school. So that means we don't have to have a break. So I hope she's going to be all right. Okay. Yeah, anybody who missed that, my wife's got COVID and she's been in bed, but she's going to go and pick son up from school anyway. I thought I was going to have to do it. So, okay. So speech heard on correct selection. This determines what happens when you touch that correct picture. So if you click on here, you'll see that there are 5 options. You can have nothing at all, no spoken feedback at all. You can have just a closure cue, or you can have the target word in isolation, or the target word in answer to the question. I would suggest that if you're not going to have the closure cue at all, then the best thing to go for is target word and answer the question, because that will make most sense. So now you get this.
Which wild animal has a reputation for being cunning?
The fox.
Okay, then you do actually, at the moment, you get that answer in digital speech, which is a bit of a shame in synthetic speech. Eventually, we'll be making it. We're gradually passing the digital synthesized speech over to real audio. You can hear the real word here,
Fox.
but there you get the synthetic speech. So the buttons at the bottom here, this one repeats the question. So,
which wild animal has a reputation for being cunning?
But also, if the person is having difficulty understanding the question, what you can do is you can tap each of these individually with a pause.
Which wild animal has a reputation for being cunning?
Because in my experience, people actually find that kind of pausing more useful than just slowing the rate of speech. So what happens if somebody has aphasia is that they have difficulty processing too much information at the same time. So if you break it down into smaller chunks with a little pause, you'll find that that question will be easier to understand, probably actually easier than just slowing the rate down. So which wild animal has a reputation, etc., is better than which wild animal has a reputation for being cunning. Because if you do that, you're still going to be overloading the person with too much information, and just slowing down doesn't help. What might be ideal is to slow it down a little bit, but then do the chunking as well, doing that pausing between the little different elements there. So that's what happens when you tap the correct answer, the correct picture. Other things you can do here, you can give the exercise a name, okay? So you might want to say Paul's words, okay? And where that will appear is,
if you're driving and you see a sign like this, what are you approaching?
Sorry, actually, I'm just going to alter it so that we don't keep hearing the question, because that gets a bit annoying. We'll flip it to a format which doesn't play the question every time. Okay, so the entry that we put into the settings here, Paul's words, now appears on this card here. It will also appear when you run the exercise here.
Questions and answers.
So you know what it is. I'll get rid of that as well. So that's a good demonstration. So it just said questions and answers when I started the exercise. You can make it say whatever you want. You can say Paul's words. And this is quite handy. Oops. Because
Paul's words.
Because what you can use that to do, you can use it to give an instruction to the person. So say you really want them to use the videos, or you don't want to use the videos, you can put a written instruction in there, a whole sentence in there, and it will basically issue a reminder when they go to start the exercise. So that's quite handy to have. Okay, this controls the number of questions that get delivered when the exercise is run. You can have up to 100 questions, or you can have as few as 5. 20 is actually often is quite a lot. Well, I used to use that as the default, but actually I often choose fewer now. We might choose just 10 questions. Anyway, actually we've skipped this bit, which is extremely important. So for exercise format. Now, what this does is, rather than change the content of the exercises, either type of question or what you get the questions about and how complex the words are, what it controls is what gets shown and played on the screen. So for example, what we've got here is the question presented in written form only. So if we go back here and run the exercise, there you've got the exercise in written form only. You can still tap it to here.
If you were traveling with National Express,
etc. But there we've got the question in written form. So you might want to, that would be to work on reading comprehension, so understanding the written word. But there's lots and lots of different permutations here, and it's worth that all the different permutations are explained here in rather small writing, unfortunately. But there you go. You can And another really interesting one, if somebody's doing really well with the multiple choice, or they're doing really well with answering the questions, in fact, and they can answer the question verbally, then what you can do is hide the multiple choice pictures like this.
What do around 40% of marriages end in?
Okay, so now the pictures that represent potentially the answer and the two incorrect answers are hidden from view. So this is good for people who want to, where you want to step up the game a bit and you want to make it harder so that they don't have the luxury of being able to just name the picture effectively. Although that's quite a difficult picture to name anyway, as it is. It's just I'm just going to turn off that audio again because I've put it on to spoken one again. Because the question is, if you go to drama school, what are you probably training to become? So in most cases, the answer should be pretty, well defined, I suppose. But of course, in order to get that answer, you really need to understand that question, and you need to be able to find the word to answer that question. What can be quite interesting, actually, is if somebody is struggling to answer that question, what you can do is you can then show the multiple choice option by touching that space there, and that will reveal the multiple choice. And what you'll sometimes find is that somebody who can then see the picture might then be able to say what it is, which basically indicates that maybe they hadn't really focused in on what the answer is internally, conceptually even. So that's quite a handy option if you've stepped up to that next level, but it's a bit too much for somebody. The next setup, the QA3 ones, that hides the top picture.
Which of these is nice on bread?
And because we've now hidden that top picture, which gives you a clue, it gives you a little bit of support to understand the question, it means that the person really has to understand that question in order to select the right picture. Because if you have that, you might be able to make the connection just by the fact that the pictures are associated, bread and jam. Whereas without the top picture, you have to understand the question in order to get it. Let's look at another one.
What do astronomers use to look at the stars?
So you can see it just starts to make it just a little bit harder when you hide that picture. You can make it even harder still. If you go down to QA4, we'll go for the written version again. You'll hide all the pictures. If you're wearing pajamas, where will you probably be? So now we're getting to a kind of a quiz, which is just verbal with no question support. As always, you can reveal the pictures if you want to, but it's a way of upping the ante a bit. What are many school children required to wear at school? So there we have it. Those are a brief sort of overview of the different ways that you can configure the format of the exercise to change the demands that the exercise imposes. So that's about changing the format, but now of course we can change the content. So the content is, what are the questions about, and how difficult are the answers? So you can, for the content, you can control what type of words you want to work on, whether it's nouns, verbs, whatever. Normally I wouldn't do anything with that one here, because having a mixture in this exercise is actually fine. Sometimes you might want to focus on just one type, but it's fine just to work on a mixture. You might though want to think about just going for more common words, because if you go for low frequency words, we'll just see the kind of thing that comes out when you go for a low frequency word. So, in a restaurant, what are escargot? There you go. So it's a bit more obscure. So you might want to leave it to start with on high frequency words. By the way, the number of questions that are resulting from your search is going to keep dropping. When you start out, say with QA1, we'll go for QA1W. At the moment, this exercise contains 2,095 questions. But what will happen will be that as you filter down, some of those will be excluded. So that includes all the easy ones and all the difficult ones. If you go to word frequency and put just high, you'll see that has gone down from 2,095 to 745. Similarly, any of the other parameters are going to bring that number down, because what you're doing is you're removing questions that don't conform with the criteria you've specified. If we're going to sets, you can look at the kind of subject matter that you're going to cover. So you might want to ask a question about birds. Now, if we narrow it down to questions about birds that are high frequency, we may not have all that many, 7, see? So that's probably being a bit fussy just to have questions about common birds. So I would often not actually restrict that one, because I might be more interested in, oh, actually, I'm just checking. I hope we haven't got somebody waiting in the waiting room. No, fortunately, we haven't got anybody waiting. That's good. Phew, it's so easy to forget about people in the waiting room because you don't get any kind of alert that there's somebody waiting. Okay. Now, so that's looked at word frequency, sets. Yeah, that's the kind of topic. So if you do want to ask questions about a particular subject, say you want questions about gardening, we've got 41 questions about gardening, but only 17 because we've asked for very common words. If we go back to, if we go back to all of them, you get all 41 questions, and you get 41 questions about gardening and plants. If you want common words about gardening and plants, you'll get 17. But we'll remove that one because that's a bit restrictive, and but we'll stick with high frequency words. Number of letters, I don't normally use that in this one. I normally use number of letters in the spelling exercises, because the most important thing in word finding, if you're planning to say the answer, is how many sounds does the word have. That's what tends to determine how complex it is to say. So let's say we're working with somebody who's got really severe difficulties with saying words. We might want to restrict it to a small number of sounds. So we'll go for 1, 2, and 3. And that takes it down to 369. Just to note that if you just go for 3, you'll only get words with 3 sounds. You won't get words with fewer than 3 sounds. So you'd get bed, but you wouldn't get shoe, which has only got 2 sounds, sh and oo. So yes, because the number of sounds is different from number of letters, you've probably gathered. Okay, in addition to that, you can actually work on specific sounds. So we've got 369 questions which have common words, which have got only 3 phonemes or less, sounds or less. But you might say, well, the person I'm working with can only say the lip sounds, like the buzz and the puzz and the muzz. So all we want to work on initially is just those, because we want the person to succeed. So we want to make sure that they can say all these words. So it may be that, you know, they can only say, they can't do tuz and cuz and all that kind of thing. So we're going to make it really easy for them. So we've now got 75 questions where all the answers begin with common words that have got no more than 3 sounds and all begin with b, p, and m. So let's see what we've got here. What would you unlock with this?
A bike.
Okay.
If you have a lot of cooking apples, what might you make? You can use cooking apples to make an apple pie.
Okay, so what I'm demonstrating there, by the way, because I forgot to tell you this, is that the closure queue, you can set it up to deliver it automatically, but you can also get it there anytime you want it. That's the closure queue, is the one where it's a run up to the word, and it helps this, you know, really sort of constrains the person onto the word, and many people will be helped by a closure queue. That's the spoken answer. This is the video, which we haven't looked at yet. So
pie.
So this is probably going to be a very popular option, especially if people have difficulty with the articulation side of things. At any point in doing this exercise, you tap that button, you get
pie,
and you get the whole word here,
pie,
and you get the individual sounds here, p, p, and
I, pie.
So you can click around here and experiment with what works for the person. You can also record yourself, pie, and play it back, pie, and compare it with the original,
pie,
pie. A bit quiet there, but the microphone's a bit quiet. So, so there, I think we've covered everything in terms of formatting it and configuring the content. Or you can actually control number of syllables, number of words. Oh, actually, there is one more. You can control the complexity of the question, which So this the high frequency here, that controls the commonness of the answer, if there's such a word, commonness. But this one controls the complexity of the question. And there are two types of complexity. There's the complexity of the language, and there's the complexity of the topic. So, for example, if you got a question about the Boer War or something like that, that would probably be rated as fairly complex, because it's basically it would be assuming the knowledge of history that not everybody might have. So you can simplify the question linguistically here, and you can simplify the question in terms of the general knowledge required. So that's a good option too. So you've got lots and lots of options for configuring the content. So as you say, at the top here, you can configure the format. At the bottom here, you can configure the content. So that is how to configure QA, the QA module. Any questions at this point? Because I'm realized that I may be going quite quickly. I don't know. How's everybody doing? Okay, grand. So actually, what I do want to say at this point is there anything, we're kind of covering some of the basics, but is there anything in particular that anybody's been struggling with when operating the app? And, you know, are there any kind of issues that have come up for you? I'm really happy to kind of go on the fly and cover any issues, any problems that have been coming up, any difficulties. Is there anything that's sort of that somebody would really like to cover? Because we can cover anything at all. You can chip in at any point if there is, or if you just get reminded of something that isn't clear, and we can stop and deal with that. Okay, so we'll just have a little recap, perhaps, of what we've got to so far. The recap is that this is the home screen. You can get in to view the current session here. That's the one we've just been looking at. That's the one we just configured. So now Paul has got 10 questions set from a pool of 75 because of the way we configured that exercise. You can add a new exercise here. If you want to switch to a different session, Paul's, oh, actually, we haven't named that one as. What's going on here? Oh, no, we haven't named that one as Paul's session. Okay. Yes, we haven't actually done editing the session yet. Right, let's just say that we've created this session for Paul. This is it's good that we found this actually. So this is the session we've created. We haven't actually named that session yet. There's a settings button for the session itself. And here you can name it Paul's word finding. Okay, and now when you go back here, that has now been labeled Paul's word finding. You can do other things here. You can give Paul a nice picture to recognize him by. Say Paul is into birds. You can put a picture there, and Paul will now be represented by a bird. I'm quite a visual person, so I like to have a little icon for each person. At some point, we might possibly allow people to put photos of the person in there, but I don't know if people necessarily want that. Okay, and the other thing that the session card is used for, the editing of the session card, is to enable remote management. So remote management, as I say, is if you want to send your session over the internet to your client, or the client wants to send the session back to you. So to set the Paul's session up for remote management, you flip that in. Whose device is this? So if you're setting up Paul's iPad, then you'll click home, because that will be his. If you're setting up your own iPad and you're the volunteer, you'll probably be doing the clinic one. So we'll set it up for clinician at the moment. And then you'll put the client's email address in there. And then that way, every time you send the session, it will be pre-filled. The email address will be pre-filled. You can exclude alcohol references throughout the whole app if you want to, if that's a sensitive issue. We had a request that could be made possible. I think we're going to do the same actually for food, for people who have issues with food, particularly people who are in hospital and who are nil by mouth, who probably wouldn't appreciate having pictures of hamburgers in front of them when they can't eat. So that's not particularly important. And there's one more thing you can do. You can put notes in here. So you can delete all that lot and just put information about that session. And when that, whatever information you put in there will appear on that card there, so that you can give a summary of what that session is all about. So it's much simpler settings for the sessions than they are for the exercises, because there's not that so much you do at session level, really, setting it up for remote management. Now that we've set it up for remote management, you'll notice that this little icon has appeared here. That is the button you press, or one of the places you can press that button to share that over the internet. So I didn't put an email address in either place, actually, so you'll have to fill those in. But as I say, if you pre-fill those email addresses in settings, and there's one for each, there's just a reminder that you can put your own, if this is the clinician's iPad, you can put your own email address in here in, oh, beg your pardon, remote management. You can put your own email address in there, and that will pre-fill every time. And the patient's email address you put in on the session card. So if you put that in there, then subsequently, every time you go to send that session, it will pre-fill these email addresses. So all you have to do is just click that and send, and you don't have to fill in any email addresses every time. So it's a big time saver. Okay, so that is editing the sessions. Another part of the recap, that wasn't recap, is how to create a new session. You can just select one from here. So we'll select one on pub quiz. The one you tap that one and then tap add session, and then pub quiz has come into the sessions that you have to choose from. So this is your selection of sessions that you can flip between and change that one to the one that's running on the home screen. So if we've now got this one selected, pub quiz will show on the home screen, and that's the one that will run when you press the play button, and it's also the one that will show here. So there's the pub quiz. So you can see that pub quiz is all about, we've got questions on different topics: history, gardening and plants, animals and insects, Europe, the rest of it. So there we go. We are halfway through our session, just about. Please, as I say, do stop me at any point if there's anything that's not clear. Please don't be afraid to stop me, because if there's something's not clear to you, it probably won't be clear to somebody else as well. So don't be afraid to say. Okay, so we've looked at configuring one type of exercise, and that is QA. Let's look at some of the other types of exercises that we've got in Cuespeak. So we will go back to our session for Paul, and we will go into that session now and add a new exercise. So we've got one set up for his word finding. We'll now set up something for sentences. So I'm going to go in here and choose sentence sorter. And we can save the exercise straight away, and then you can go in and edit it. There is a slight risk when you create a new exercise. I'll just show you what it is. If you create a new exercise and you configure, and then press cancel, you lose all your configuration. So make sure on the first time you press save, otherwise you'll lose it all. But once it's actually been configured, even once you've saved it, basically, you never have to press save again. It's one of those
questions and answers.
It's one of those little quirks of the app. So you can see there's no longer a save button there now. It's replaced with a video tutorial button. So now if you do any editing, once it's been saved once, you can edit all you like and just go back. So it's
questions and answers.
It's only risky if you if it's I'm going to get rid of that, sorry, so it doesn't keep saying that. It's only risky if it says cancel, and that's when you first create the exercise. So we've created, I'm going to get rid of that one. Oh yes, I haven't shown you how to delete an exercise. It's the same as deleting a session. So like this, slide the card to the left. You can either delete it or hide it in the back room. Hide it in the back room. There it is in the back room. Put it back in the session. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Put it back in the session the same way, slide it and press the plus button. Take it out of the session, slide it. There you go. Actually, and I'll show you how to delete it as well. So we'll put it back. Actually, we'll just delete it from here. But that exercise, you'll get a warning. That exercise has been deleted, and that's gone forever. You can't ever get that back. But of course, you can create a new one. But if you've had it configured for something, then don't delete it if that configuration is important to you. So we've just created a sentence sorter exercise. Let's have a look at what sentence sorter can do. It's a very versatile exercise. And if we look down here at sentence types here, you'll see that there's a whole load of types of sentence. This is all linguistic stuff. Apologies for the technical stuff here, but this means subject and intransitive verb. If you don't know anything about linguistics, don't worry. Basically, the shorter ones are going to be the simpler ones, and these are going to be the more complex ones. So SVIOIO is things like the woman gives the boy a present, whereas this would just be something like the boy's riding a bike, where it's just a subject. I don't know, actually, no, sorry, that would be SVO. That the boy is riding a bike. That could just be something like the man is laughing. Okay, so we'll go for something very simple like that. Actually, there are other ways of limiting the content. Anyway, you can make it simpler in other ways, but we won't do it that way for the moment, because you're more likely to want to do that if you're being very specific linguistically. But maybe what you want to do is just make sure that the sentences aren't too long for the moment. So let's just say we'll have 2 or 3 tiles in the sentence. There's no such thing as one sentence because it's all about sorting them. So we'll have 2 or 3 tiles in the sentence. But yes, one sec. Oh yes, right. Sets is important. The sentence sorter actually is probably one of the more complex ones in terms of getting to know the settings. You need to spend a bit of time with this. And I actually forget where everything is in this. You have to kind of look around. This is quite a useful distinction here, because what we've got here is a number of sets of question types. The first lot, it explains it all here. The ones beginning with C are contextual or conversational questions. So they are things like asking questions, expressing needs and wishes. So they're very practical, everyday things. Whereas the ones beginning with P, that stands for psycholinguistic. And those are the ones which target particular types of sentence processing difficulties. So you can absolutely use it for either, but I wouldn't tend to mix them up. So I'd tend to go for one or the other. One of my favorites is actually asking questions. So let's just select that one. There's 41 asking questions. We've actually restricted it here to 2 and 3, so let's not do that for the moment. Got 41 questions, and this is going to help people to ask questions. And there are a number of ways that you can set it up to do this. If we just run the exercise now, you'll see what you get by default.
You meet a friend whose wife has been ill. Ask him how she is.
Okay, so here we've got a scenario. You meet a friend whose wife has been ill. You can see the sentence in written form there if you want to as well. And in this particular version of the task, what the person has to do is put these in the right order to answer that question. So we want, how is your wife?
How is your wife?
We'll then play it back to you.
How is your wife?
If you're happy with the order of the sentence, you press the smiley face.
Correct.
And there you go. That's that job done. So it's just literally a sentence ordering task.
Some friends tell you they've just moved into a new house. Ask them where it is.
Where is?
I'm going to deliberately put it in the wrong order. See what happens.
It. Where it is.
Okay, so you get the spoken feedback. You can hear it again.
Where it is.
And they might think, oh, that's not quite right. You can also press here and it will reject any words that are in the wrong place.
Is it. Where is it? That's right.
Okay, so that's just a sentence ordering task. But there are other things you can do with sentence sorter, which are quite interesting. What you can do is you can hide the tiles. These rather than have it as an ordering task, you can actually hide the tiles here. If you go into the second lot, which is a bit like the previous format thing we looked at, where you go into number 2 and it hides the multiple choice option. So what we get now is
you're talking to someone who's away on holiday. Ask them what the weather's like.
Okay, so suddenly it gets a lot harder because they haven't got these tiles to sort. So now their task is to say, what's the weather like? You might think, well, okay, that's too hard. Well, what we can do is we can pre-fill some of those tiles. So let's have a look here. Pre-fill tiles. And you can choose what type of words you want to pre-fill. You might just want to pre-fill the first word, for example. Or you have to do all those, but you can select them all individually. So now all the first words will be filled in.
You meet someone on a Monday morning. Ask her about her weekend.
So now you've got
How?
and then the person has got to just work out, was your weekend? If they're stuck, they can go there and still
Was your weekend?
and do it that way. But
That's right.
But you can pre-fill as many words as you want. You can actually pre-fill all of them if you like, and then that becomes a different type of task. So select all, pre-fill all the words.
A friend says, I'm looking forward to my holiday in Fiji. Ask him when he's going.
This might be a good starting point for this one. If the person has difficulty ordering the sentence and has difficulty saying it at all, you might just want to present the whole sentence for practice and just saying it.
When are you going?
And remember that wherever you see this button, it means that you've got it in video format as well. So
when are you going?
So you get the whole sentence there. You get the individual words here.
When are you going?
And down here, if you scroll down, you'll get any polysyllabic words will be broken down.
Going,
which is particularly maybe not so useful for that one, but it can be very useful if you've got some really complex words that will have that breakdown into the syllables. So that is roughly sentence sorter and what that does. Yeah, I think we'll go through, or I will just show you an example of the more psycholinguistic ones. If we go for reversible sentences, this is something that some speech therapists might be setting up for their clients.
Who is helping who?
That we need to put this as the original format. Oh, no.
Who
don't want to
is pushing who?
We don't want to pre-fill anything here. We might want to pre-fill something, actually. So deselect all. There's a let Cuespeak decide. Let's see what Cuespeak thinks about pre-filling here.
Who is proposing to who?
Okay, so this is a reversible sentence. And the idea here is that the person has to look at the sentence and decide who is doing the proposing. Now, this is a powerful task in terms of getting somebody to grips with how to put sentences together. Because if you have aphasia, you might forget or just lose the ability to remember that you start off a sentence with the person who's doing something and then finish it with the person they're doing it to simplify things too much. So
the woman is proposing to the man. The woman is proposing to the man. That's right.
Who is laughing?
The audience is laughing at the comedian. The audience is laughing at the comedian.
Okay, you get the idea. So it's a very different kind of feel from the asking questions. So you can see that the psycholinguistic ones are very different from the kind of practical ones. And as I say, I wouldn't tend to mix the two particularly there. So
a friend has had a bad back. Ask him how it is.
Okay, so that is, in a nutshell, that is sentence sorter. What we'll do now is we'll look at a couple of the new modules. So we'll look at Word Finder, which is going down very, very well indeed. So, by the way, Word Finder and Talking Points, these new modules, they will only appear if your app is up to date. And that would be actually a good point. Before I tell you about these two modules, I will tell you about keeping your app up to date. What's really important to remember, and actually quite difficult to get your head around initially, is that there are actually two types of being up to date with Cuespeak. There's keeping the content up to date, that is the questions that are coming into it, so all the current affairs questions, and you update it by pressing this bit here. So this is now doing an update, and And what that's doing is it's bringing in all the new questions and deleting old ones or edits to questions and the rest of it. But what it's not doing is changing the actual structure of the app. And if there's a new module that comes in, that kind of update will not make it appear, because what you need for that is a version update. So we've got content updates and version updates. Version updates, you can't do them from within the app. They happen from on the App Store. So if we go out of Cuespeak and find the App Store, if it's here, is it actually here? No, it's not actually there. This is an iPad simulator, so it hasn't got access to the iStore, but the iPad, the App Store. But you'll go to the App Store, which is the blue A symbol, and look for Cuespeak, and you'll find the updates there. So the updates come out maybe every couple of months. It's quite, unpredictable really as to how often they come out. Sometimes we'll put out, a couple really close together, and sometimes there won't be one for a couple of months. But a new update will bring changes to the actual structure of the app, and it will bring in new modules. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can find out what version of the app you're on by going into by going into the main menu here, go into app settings, and scroll down to the bottom, and it will say version here. So this version I'm running here is 2.8.1, which I think is pretty up to date. I think we might be on 2.8.2 at the moment. And anyway, that version does contain Word Finder and Talking Points, the new modules. But if you're on an older version like 2.7, you won't yet have Word Finder and Talking Points in there. So let's just have a look at Word Finder and Talking Points. But yeah, now you know, if you can't find it, you know why, because if it's not showing up under exercise type when you create a new exercise at the bottom here, then it means you're on an old version and you need to go to the App Store and update. So Word Finder. Now, Word Finder is unusual in that you'll notice that the number of questions is 0, and that's because you need to select them individually. You've actually got a card with no questions showing. And the way you select them is by searching the library of words in Cuespeak. We've got thousands and thousands of videos in Cuespeak library. So this is your opportunity to seek them out and practice a particular word. Does anybody want to test me out and give me a name, a family name, and we'll see if it's in there? Can anybody give me a name to look for? Maybe one of your clients or a relative? Or maybe you're all muted. I hope you're still there. It's good to check every now and then, isn't it? You're still there. Is anybody there? If I haven't been talking to myself for a long time. Is somebody there? I'm just going to stop the share for a moment and just. Oh, you are still there. That's good. Great. I couldn't hear anybody there, so I was just checking that you're still there. Right. I will. So yes. Okay. I'll choose one of your names. We'll go for Christine and Rachel, and we'll see if they're in there. So let's just go back to the screen share. Are you seeing my screen again now? Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay. So Christine, I'll put in that. We've got Christine. That's good. And so what you do is it will, if it's in the library, it will appear underneath here, and then you click on that and it will go into your exercise. I'll just show you that again. So we'll put in Rachel. Okay, so Rachel has appeared here. So click on that, and that will now appear in the exercise when you run it. So we'll just save that one now. So now we've got 2 words in the exercise. So let's see what happens when we play it.
Word Finder.
Christine.
So you get a video saying Christine, and you get a typing exercise, which we can configure in various ways. So you can practice typing it.
Christine.
Okay, it will play again when you've done it. You can actually finger write it as well, if you want to. If somebody prefers to do finger writing, I won't do that with a mouse. That's a bit hard. If you want to practice that word broken down, you can go into
Christine.
the video.
Christine. Christine.
Okay, and then we can go on to Rachel.
Rachel.
Again, the video.
Rachel. Ray. Chul.
Okay, let's try some places. Let's try Leeds. See if that Leeds should be in there. Hopefully, yep, Leeds is in there, and Leeds University. Let's see, is Wakefield in there? That's a good test, isn't it? Oh, it is. That's not bad, is it? So you can change the order around here in which they're presented. So that's quite handy.
Wakefield.
We might even have. Let's see if Speak with IT's in there. Speak with IT's in there as well. That's good, isn't it? So we've got quite a few names of organisations of working with people with aphasia. Things like Stroke Association, because they're really hard to say. So these are all. What I'm trying to do gradually is just add all the vocabulary that would be likely to be useful to somebody with aphasia. I mean, you can think of anything you want. So say you just want to. It doesn't have to be names. It can just be fish and chips. Fish and chip shop. Well, we've got fish and chip shop, but not fish and chips. Oh well, we'll put fish in, and then we'll put chips in. And I'll show you. Actually, I'll show you what happens when there's something if there's something that isn't in the library. What you can do. So if you put in fish and chips like this, it will say when you're searching for fish and chips, it's not there because it's not appearing in the list. What you can do is click on request this word. When you click on that, provided your iPad is on email, it will generate an email that you can just send to us, and I will then make a video of fish and chips, and it will be added to the exercise. You can do that with any family name. So you say you've got a pet and you've got a dog called Dottie or something, just and you put in Dottie, because I know that won't be there. So Dottie, okay, request this word or phrase, put that in there. I won't ask any questions about why you want the word Dottie. It's just, I'll just take it that there's a good reason for it. So you can add anything you want, literally anything you want to the library. Phrases as well. I mean, I would say it's good. It would be good really if there are phrases, it would be good if they were really sort of common phrases that most people would benefit from. You know, not something like, you know, have you fed the squirrels? I don't know. Maybe that would be all right. I mean, I don't think too many people would have you fed the squirrels, but it'd be. I wouldn't want too much work making videos like that. But within reason, I'll make videos for just about anything. I could do have you fed the squirrels? I'll probably do it for you. Okay, so when it comes to configuring this exercise, you can change these. Well, you can do all sorts of things with it. Actually, you can. Written stimulus display. What's this? Yeah. So you can make it. You can alter the spelling task like this.
Wakefield.
You can see that the word appeared and then disappeared. You can alter the time that it takes to disappear. So glimpse duration here. Let's make it 3 seconds.
Wakefield.
And then it disappears and the person has to copy it in.
Wakefield.
So it's got a dual purpose, really, this one. It's about saying the word and about writing the word. But what's nice about it is that you can choose exactly the vocabulary you want. We're going to be gradually bringing this into more areas of Cuespeak, the opportunity to choose exactly what vocabulary you want to work on. But this is the first foray that we have into that. There's all sorts of different other permutations of the spelling task. I think you can just show the first letter, for example. Show first letter only, or you can glimpse the whole word and then show the first letter. Let's just show the first letter only.
Wakefield.
Okay.
Wakefield.
Okay, so that is Word Finder. any questions, and please do stop me if there's anything you want to ask about. Otherwise I'll just wrap it on.
Sorry, John, I'm actually going to have to collect my son now, so I'm sorry I've got to disappear.
Okay. No worries. Nice to meet you.
Thank you ever so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, let us look at talking points, which is the other new module. So I'll just show you again how we did that. So add a new exercise to pause session, go to exercise type, scroll down to talking points, and remember to save it. So talking points is basically a conversation starter kind of thing, which can be quite useful.
Talking points.
So
Johnny Cash played a series of concerts in unusual locations. Do you know where he played?
okay, so this has it set up at the moment. Oh, it's set up to personal and quiz. Okay, yeah, that's reasonable. So you can set it up to just personal questions. So that was a quiz question. Let's just have personal questions.
Do you have a favorite season of the year? Have you ever been a regular pub goer? If you were to go to a pub for a drink with a friend, what would you be most likely to order for yourself?
And remember that there's if you didn't want questions about pubs, you're thinking, hang on, that's not a very good question to ask this person. You can go out to the
Have
session.
any of the banks in your area closed down?
Sorry, we have to go back to the session if you want to take out the alcohol related ones. Going back into here, into the session, exclude alcohol references. There won't be any more of those. Okay. Let's go in again.
Talking point.
Do you use Facebook?
So what you can do is you can choose any of the questions. You don't have to ask them all at all, but if you tap a question, it will play.
Do you use any other social media platform? Do you think the world is a better place for social media?
So obviously these are going to be probably most suitable for people who have a bit more verbal output, but in actual fact, you've got the option to just reduce the question types to yes, no questions. So just have yes, no questions. And let's test it a bit, and we'll have just personal yes, no questions.
Are you an admirer of his work?
Oh, that doesn't quite match the wording on there. I should look at that one.
Do you enjoy going to art galleries?
So these are all questions that you can answer with yes or a no.
Do you think receiving an email is as good as receiving a letter?
Because once you've heard the question, what you can do is you can repeat it back to the person in other ways and discuss it with them. You can also hide the questions here, by the way. You don't have to have the questions show. In fact, you can make it so that they're always hidden. Show questions from the outset, you can flip that off, and then you'll just get a picture.
Have you ever eaten lobster?
Oh, sorry, you can have to switch off the autoplay as well. Autoplay first question. So then you just get a picture, and you could use that as a starting point. Then if you want some questions, you click on here and you'll show the questions.
When you were young, did you used to play conkers? Did you have any methods for making the conkers stronger?
Okay, so you get the picture. You can also, I don't know, some of you might have heard about a therapy technique called semantic feature analysis, which you can also do a bit of with this. It's not sort of massively geared up for this, but let's just try a bit. Semantic feature analysis.
Talk.
Oh.
In which season do we see blossom on the trees?
So semantic feature analysis, it's a bit like a quiz, but it's a quiz in which you can be really certain the person is going to know the answer. You know, they'll have the idea in their head, you know. So and basically this is a technique for developing word finding, which is very well tried and tested. Let's just show you a few more examples of that. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put it on autoplay. Is seawater good to drink? What is it that makes seawater unsuitable for drinking? How many creatures can you think of that live in the sea? Can you think of one thing that grows in the sea? Imagine you're going for a walk along a beach. Can you think of some of the things you might see on it? So these are all questions that they don't require any general knowledge, but they're good for developing word finding. So that is talking points. Okay, how is everybody doing? Anybody flagging there? Because I realize that there's a lot of information coming at you. And personally, I find that after about an hour or so of staring at a computer screen or something like this, I find that I'm wanting it all to end. How's everybody doing? I'm just going to stop the sharing again. And how's everybody doing there? Okay, yep. You want a bit more? Should we look at a few?
Hanging in there.
You're staying on in there, right? Good. Okay. Okay, let's look at perhaps another couple of modules then, if that's what would be useful. It was Yvonne there, isn't it? And Michael. Is that Yvonne and Michael? Are you okay there, Yvonne and Michael?
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah, we're
Okay,
good.
good.
Trying to absorb it all.
Good.
There's quite a lot to take in.
There is a lot to take in, yes. Yeah, well, there'll be the recording to look at. And also, actually, the other good bit of news is that we're working at the moment on a manual, which is going to sit on our website. And it won't be too long before you can actually just dip there and ask questions there and find out all this kind of information.
Yeah.
And of course, you've always got the tutorial videos to refer back to. So you can go into here, and Getting to Know Cuespeak has got loads of this stuff. So you can recap by looking through some of these. It's slow to load on this one. There you go. So yeah, you've got editing sessions, keeping it up to date, all sorts of stuff here. So yeah. Okay, so what I will do now is I'll show you another couple of modules then. So we'll create a new exercise. When the exercises go off the bottom of the screen, you have to scroll down here. You've also got the option to press the plus button here to create a new exercise. It's another way of doing it. So let's look at sound spell. So sound spell is spelling with sounds, surprisingly. So here we go.
Sound spell.
When a couple get married in church, which part of the church do they walk down?
So
So
you've got you have to put the letters in the right order, but that actually gets you to hear the sounds in that order as well. And that,
hey John, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. That's very, very easily done here. Okay, right. Thank you for telling me. Right. Okay, I'll just I'll go back and show you that again then. Okay. Right. Yes. So what we did was we created a sound spell exercise here, and we haven't done any other configuration here yet. But
in a cardiac arrest, which part of the body stops working?
so as you put the tiles into position, you hear the sounds of the words.
A cardiac arrest is a problem with the heart.
And what's quite good about this is that the content that's coming through this module is the same as the content that's coming through the first module we looked at, QA. And this in QA would be the top picture, and this would be the answer picture. And just as in QA, you can hide one or the other. You might think, well, why are there two pictures there? One sets the context, the other basically depicts the answer. And you can hide either of these. And again, that enables you to create hierarchies to make the task harder. So just like in QA, you can do all the same configuration and choose shorter words or longer words, higher frequency words, low frequency words, but also you can hide one thing or another. So you can go, for example, to writing an answer to a question.
Emmanuel Macron is president of which country?
So now the answer is not depicted.
Emmanuel Macron is president of France.
You do have the option, though, of showing the picture that's been hidden, as always.
Which day of the week do Christians normally go to church?
Okay.
What can you use to beat an egg?
So there's the picture showing there. But you can see how hiding that picture makes it a bit of a harder task. So in terms of processing the information, it's it's much harder if there isn't a picture there.
If you're driving and you see a sign like this, what are you approaching?
Well, maybe that's kind of partly showing it there, but there's the real thing. Okay, so, except that that one's in Swindon, not near Bangor. There you go. Can't have everything perfect. So that's sound spell. And let's add another exercise. Asking and offering is quite a nice one. Actually, we will look at matching module as well if we have time for that. So asking and offering is a very practical one.
Asking and offering.
You're at a friend's house and they offer you a drink. Ask for one of these.
So in asking and offering, there isn't a correct answer. You can choose any of the pictures and you just think, well, if I was at a friend's house, which one would I want? Well, if you say you're a tea drinker, you might want to practice saying this one.
Can I have some tea, please?
And the moment you've clicked on one, you'll notice that the video button has become active, because that means that the one you've selected is now available in the video.
Can I have some tea, please?
Together with these videos.
Can I have some tea, please?
Pick a different one.
Can I have some coffee, please? Can I have some water,
And
please?
all of those will have appeared.
Can I have some water?
So you can see that there's videos for every one, but they won't appear until you've selected one. So you might think, where's the video?
Where do you do most of your weekly shopping?
Obviously, the video can only be a useful one when the video button knows which one you're choosing. So
I do most of my shopping at Sainsbury's.
I do most of my shopping at Sainsbury's.
you might think, well, Sainsbury's is a hard one to say. So let's go down here and we'll split it into syllables.
Sainsbury's.
Okay. So yes, actually, what else is there in asking and offering? Got sets here. We've got questions about the person, asking, offering, food and drink, likes and dislikes. That's quite a nice one. So it's okay to mix them up in this one though.
Asking.
What type of music do you like?
I like pop music.
Yeah, and video at the bottom. Okay, we're just giving a whistle-stop tour of all the modules here now. Matching module is a very versatile one. This is a good one to familiarize yourself with all the options, because you can create so many different types of exercise from this. Basically, you by default, what you get is in the matching module is
Matching module.
So by default, you get a written word at the top and a selection of pictures at the bottom. And it's just literally you have to match that word to that picture.
Hair. Code.
So a very simple exercise. You'll probably have seen that kind of thing in Tactus apps and the rest of it. But you've got a very wide range of options here. So you can have anything you want at the top. You can have a picture at the top. And let's say we want a spoken word at the top and a picture. So let's try that one.
Sledging.
Sledging.
If you pick the wrong one, you don't just get a doof error message, you get feedback.
No, this man is skiing. Which one is sledging?
So it's a bit more useful than just getting an error message, because you know why it was wrong. So we've got spoken word, written word, articulation video at the top. You can have that too.
Matching.
Toothbrush.
Toothbrush.
You can also select the distractor types. So you may well have come across this term, that this is the target and these are called the distractors. Sometimes they're also called foils. And you can control what type you have to make them easier or harder. The hardest ones tend to be the close semantic distractors. So if we looked at distractors here, distractor types, we've got close coordinate, distant coordinate. These are semantic ones, or you've got unrelated. So if you just put unrelated, you could make it really easy. So you could have one unrelated distractor. You could choose the number there.
running,
running,
chair,
chair,
You can see that's become a lot easier there. At the moment, we've got a mixture of nouns and verbs and all sorts because we haven't selected down the target word type. If we put it just down to just nouns for the moment.
coffee,
coffee,
teacher,
teacher,
chips,
chips,
You can, if you're doing an exercise like this, by the way, you might want to use the auto advance facility, which I don't normally have switched on, but the auto advance just means that when you get to the end of, when you've selected the right picture, it automatically moves on like this.
Japan,
Japan,
London,
London,
So you can see that that's a fairly easy.
pilot,
So you can see that it's fairly easy to determine which one is which there. But if you set it to a closer distractor, such as close coordinate, then it will be more challenging.
potato,
potato,
You can see this is part of the same category, so it's
van,
more challenging.
van,
tie,
tie.
And of course, you always get the feedback.
crumpet,
No, this is a piece of toast. Which is the crumpet?
I don't know if you call them crumpets or do you call them pikelets up there? It's so difficult with the regional variations. I think that I come from the Midlands, and they're sometimes pikelets and sometimes crumpets. But yeah, try to cater for regional variations as much as possible, but I'm sure I don't always get it right. Okay. Yeah.
pig,
And there's also a nice option of having a sound effect at the top. Let's try this one.
Mat, fire,
Oh, crikey, that was a bit loud.
whistle, vegan,
Oh, yeah, that noise was.
clock,
Okay. So there we go. That's matching module. Oh, I don't know. That's the next question. It's a radio. Hopefully that will got a bit out of control, that one. Okay, so that's the matching module. Oh yes, we haven't actually looked at the response task. So at the bottom you can have written word, picture, spoken word, or first letter. First letter is a very nice one. Let's have a look.
matching,
police officer,
Oh, that's quite a challenging one.
hotel, towel,
So you can see there's a huge range of exercises to choose from in Cuespeak. I just wonder actually if for the last bit, perhaps what we should do is just talk about how you're finding things generally working with your volunteers and what kind of issues come up for you. It'd be very useful for me to know what kind of issues come up for you, and what's been challenging, what's been useful, and what you found difficult. So yeah, it'd be good to hear from you actually, because I've been jabbering away for an hour and 3/4, nearly hour and a half. And yeah, is there anything that's cropping up for you particularly that you find challenging or that you'd like to clear up?
I think one of the things I find most difficult with the client that I've got is she's quite reluctant to use the information technology side of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a barrier that we're trying to overcome at the moment.
Yeah.
So I feel that I've got to have quite good knowledge of the IT before I can actually you know, allow her to go along with it, really.
Her tolerance for any kind of problems is going to be low, you mean? She's going to lose her patience
Yeah,
if it doesn't go
she
absolutely smoothly.
frustrated quite easily.
Yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes people are looking for a reason to reject the whole idea and say, oh, I told you all this apps and iPads, it's all nonsense. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there are any easy answers to that, really, are there? Apart from, I think, try and keep it manageable for her. Just make
Yeah.
sure you don't give her anything that's too hard.
Yeah.
Err on the side of simple.
Yeah.
Not too many options.
Mm.
And I would actually say, another tip I would say is that sometimes it's possible to over-explain things. That explanations, verbal explanations, can sometimes make people panic. Whereas actually demonstration is better than explanation. Just say, right, here we go, do that. All you have to do is touch that one there. Keep it real, and just not too many verbal instructions. I think that can really help, because otherwise I think the panic levels start to rise. The more verbal instruction you get, the more people are tempted to panic.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it simple.
Any other issues cropping up for people? That's obviously a big one. The technophobia, yes. Oh, is Yvonne? I think you're muted at the moment. Yvonne, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an issue, John. I think it's an added benefit that, you know, to see the lips. So as I've been sitting alongside Michael when we've been using this with Rachel, his volunteer, it's really good that it can see the lips, because I think he struggles otherwise, you know, to pronounce the word, to start the word.
That's good. Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, you know, with doing these Zoom and not face to face.
Yeah.
I think the lips is brilliant.
Good. I'm glad you think that. I mean, one thing actually I really want to add to the app is an option so that when you touch the right answer, you automatically get the video. You don't even have to ask for it. So you can actually opt to touch the right picture, and then you just instantly get the video showing you how to say the word. I think that would be a really useful one for some people, and maybe that would be useful for you, Michael.
Yeah.
Great. So Michael, when you do Cuespeak, those cues, do they help you to say the words? So if you get something like you sleep in a bed. Yes, so it does work for you then. So those cues are likely to work. Yeah, good. Yeah.
It does help. Yeah, because I think if he has a cue, then it does help a lot, because if he tries to think of a word himself, without any kind of hint or cue, it'd struggle.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to talk to you at some point, actually. Perhaps what we could easily do is have a kind of a one-to-one session, looking at actually setting it up for Michael.
That'd be brilliant.
It's Rachel that's working. Is the Rachel here? Yeah. So that you're working with Michael. Yeah. I mean, this applies to anybody basically. If you'd like to have a session just talking over what you've got, and you know, we could do a Zoom chat about it. You could show me what you've got at the moment, and I might be able to make some suggestions about how to tweak it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we didn't know about word finders. Did we? So and that's going to be really helpful, because I know you've been talking about lists of useful words to practice.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we've got the the most up-to-date version.
Yeah.
So that we can get word finder.
Yeah, and if there are any names in there or any words in there that you want and they're not there, then just let me know and send me an email. And they're normally within a couple of days, and quite often actually within a few minutes. If I happen to be at my desk, you know, then it's the right timing. Sometimes my record so far is 4 minutes from getting the request to actually having it in the app. So I'm not going to say it's like going to be like that all the time, but that's the record so far. Okay, so we've got Christine and the other Michael as well. How are you getting on? Actually, I can't actually see everybody at the moment. I'm just going to flip over here and see if I can.
Yeah, it's Michael here.
Yeah, Michael, how are you getting on with Cuespeak and what kind of?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fairly new to volunteering, and Cuespeak looks great. I've been using it a little bit, only because I've only seen one client using it, but it's been good. But I guess the general feedback for me is that I'm relying on the therapist to set the sessions up.
Yeah.
I think that's the guidance we've all been given, I think. But so when we get started, I'm looking at the percentage. So I've got a number of sessions. I go through each one and look at the actual marks that they're actually getting at the end of it.
Mhm.
And then I make a decision with the client about whether we should make it easier or harder.
Yes.
And then I'm trying to make the changes. But I do think I may be struggling a bit to make the right changes. I think there's so many options in there.
I know.
Which is
It's
good.
overwhelming.
But I'm not quite sure which ones to go with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I guess this kind of training will help me. It will do, without doubt.
Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, clearly, there's an awful lot to learn and to find out about how those changes will be made, because that is the job of a therapist. But you know, as volunteers, I'm sure that you can gradually start to take on more of those roles as you get familiar with the options for how to configure, because there are certain kind of fairly standard changes that one would make to make things easier or harder.
Okay.
And I think that over time you will get more knowledgeable and confident about what those options would be. But what I would say is that, you know, probably the most useful thing would be if we could team up with a client and actually do a session together. You know, I'd be very happy to talk over some options.
Right, very good, thank you.
Because, you know, whilst the therapist, are the therapists actually involved with the client that you're working with at the moment? Is there a therapist involved at the moment?
On the first session, so we've had a first session with the client, and the therapist set up on their iPad a session with five or six of the options. Right word. And then I've been taking them. I think we only had 2 separate sessions after that. Then I take them through and work with them.
Yeah.
On the sessions.
And do you know how long that therapist is likely to be involved yet?
Well, they'll only be involved, as far as I can understand, if I go back to them with questions,
right?
Or if they decide they need to do an assessment.
Potentially, you're left on to your own devices now.
Yeah, but there is the support we can get from either from the specialist or the coordinator.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're not on our own, but that's basically, in this case, I'm working with them and trying to work through it. But I will feed back if I have real issues.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I mean, yeah, as I say, anybody's welcome to get in touch. And, you know, for some support, whether it's technical support or just sort of therapy advice, I'm very happy to give that. I mean, it may come a point in the future when I'm not able to give that because we're just overwhelmed. But it's still fairly early days, really, in the evolution of Cuespeak, and I'm in a position at the moment that I could do that. So,
very good. Thank
just
you.
excuse me 1 second. I heard the doorbell new to volunteering, but it must be pretty challenging to feel like you're kind of running solo with it a bit. And yeah, so I'm very happy to. You know, and what you could do is drop me an email, and we could fix up a time to talk through things.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, that applies to anybody that if you'd like to have a chat through where you're at with a client, then you'd be very welcome.
So could we have your email address then, please?
Yeah, sure. It's John without an H, so JON @cuespeak.com.
Okay. Thanks.
But equally, you can just use the contact in the app, which I just yeah. So you don't even need to remember that. You could just do this from the home screen. You just go up to the main menu here and do contact us, and that will generate an email that will come to me. Okay, we are approaching the end of our time. Is there anything else that anybody would like to discuss?
Just wondered if there are any plans to have it on Android as well.
Yeah, it's a common question. I'm afraid the likelihood of that in the near future is very small. The reason being that it's such a massive complex app. The development for the iOS version, the Apple version, has been a very big and complex process. Developing another version for Android would be hugely expensive and time consuming. And so we just had to make a decision about which platform to go for. We're a tiny team of just 2. So it's me and Robin, the programmer. Robin, by the way, is in Sheffield. He's not so far from you, not as far away as I am, but it's an app made partly in the north. But yes, I'd love to say that we're going to have an Android version at some point, and I know hopefully we will at some point, but it's not looking imminent, I'm afraid. Do you find that quite a lot of the clients have Android? I mean, people that you've worked with have had Android only. But you do have loan iPads, don't you?
No, my clients all actually have Apple devices, but I've only got Android. But Speak with That has actually loaned me
Okay.
An iPad, so that's okay. But
Good,
yeah, just wondering.
Okay. I'm thinking actually there's some people I can't see probably. Have we got? Oh, maybe not. No, I think I've got you all there on the screen. I was thinking there was might be somebody I was ignoring because I couldn't see you. Good. Okay, I think that's probably covered everything that I wanted to cover. I'll probably think of something else after we end the session, but there we go. I'm sure we're going to have a rolling program of this. I think we're going to do a session every 6 months. This is the plan. So when it comes to the next session, if you want to join that and you have any questions in advance, I'm very happy to field to sort of take questions on the fly. But in the meantime, as I say, get in touch through the app or john@cuespeak.com if you've got any queries or if you'd like to arrange a meetup online.
Thank you. That's been great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.